Hey everyone, I'm Brady Briggs with another episode of the Combat Logic. Joining me today is Justus St-Pierre and Jordan Mann. Today we'll be talking about the greatest of all time in mixed martial arts. Jordan, let's start with you. Who do you have as your
I
number?
mean, my number one's to me, it's a pretty clear cut case for John Jones.
Yeah, why would you say that?
Well, so just by with him being the youngest champion of all time, number one, I don't really feel like he's ever lost a fight. I mean, technically never lost a fight, other than the disqualification loss. The just He's on a 17 fight win streak. The level of competition that he has faced has been second to none.
Yeah, especially when he came up, they just went through a legends row, literally.
Yes, people are starting to catch up with him a little bit. I mean, age catches up with anybody, but the skills of these fighters are coming up too are also,
Mm-hmm.
you know, pretty great at this point. But fighting Daniel Cormier a couple times and beating him. I know one of them was over Terran, but the Lyoto Machida, Shogun. I mean, the list is heavy.
No, yeah, Jones, he's really shot himself in the foot his whole career with, his steroid abusing. But
Mm.
let's be honest, a lot of his opponents were doing that too. Chael, Vitor, um,
Yep.
Shogun, I think, popped at one point. There's a few of them that popped at some point. And yeah, I think now that he's come back, he hasn't been the same. Like the only fight he's had since his return that he really looked good in was the Gustafsson rematch because Gustafsson went in that with the same game plan as he did in the first. John did not. But
Yep.
since then, like the Santos fight, he fought uh, Muay Thai black belt was on one leg for one round, and then zero legs. He tore both ACLs for the remaining four rounds. Couldn't finish him. Then I thought he lost the Reyes fight, but for the disqualification, obviously he was dominating that fight, and it should have been stopped before he even got the chance to get disqualified. Um, with his wrestling background, his striking diversity, yeah, I could definitely see how you'd have him as number one. What do you think of John Jones Justice?
Um, I basically the same as you as far as kind of shoots himself in his foot. I think mostly the biggest people that can beat John Jones is John Jones himself. It's just as far as sports goes, as 9 out of 10 times, anyways. People don't look at Lance Armstrong as Lance Armstrong anymore due to his
Mm-hmm.
PED use. People don't look at Barry Bonds like Barry Bonds was because of his PED use. A lot of people even discredit Babe Ruth nowadays because he was obviously taking, crazy substances.
They're almost
And
more
his,
known for that now.
yeah, and these are different sports, of course, but it's still the same thing, you know what I mean? And the UFC is definitely a sport where there's a lot of people using a lot of tainted substances that, aren't specifically allowed. I just, with that in mind, and I do think, you know, uh, Jordan had mentioned himself that he's only technically lost once. And I do think he lost the Rays fight. Um, that's neither here or there, though, because the record showed different. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I also do think he lost the Anthony Smith fight. It's an illegal knee. Uh,
I forgot
why,
about
in reality, in the short of it, I think he's lost about 3 times, but
that.
and that doesn't really matter to me as far as losses. You can be the best and lose. You
Sure.
can become really, really good off that, actually. I mean, I have George as my personal greatest of all time, and he's lost twice. It's more or less just, it's not even who he per se is outside of the cage, like his actions. It's mostly just with the constant PED usage and the UFC's ability to just kind of overlook it or spend lots of money, honestly, to make up ways on how it's in a system, but it's just such a small amount. And
Yeah, for the
if you
Anthony
go
Smith
to,
fight, for the Gustafson rematch.
yeah, if you go on to any credible, per se, health fitness type person on like YouTube or anything like that, they'll quickly explain to you. It's kind of like the Adesanya titty. It's a bullshit explanation.
Yeah,
I think John is still going on and off PEDs, and it's more or less just disappointment because I don't think he needs to.
Mhm.
John Jones has athletic genetic gifts that
every God-given gift.
He's 6'4" with 84 inches of reach, and I don't really think a lot of people consider just how crazy that really is. I think that's maybe like 4 inches less than someone like Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
and
insane.
That's
Durant's
just
like 7 foot.
I was about saying there's quite a big height discrepancy. It might be like 5 inches. I don't know KD's per se reach on the fly, but it's mostly just and I don't think he's beaten as good as competition per se as George. And I just think George handled his career better than anyone for an honorable mention.
For sure.
When you really break down, especially just even a few fights, say like going back to UFC 79 where he beat Matt Hughes in the third fight. Matt Hughes right then and there was still 42-5.
Oh, he had won great, man.
He had won 20 out of his previous 22 fights and 7 out of the prior 8, and that only loss out of those prior 8 was George St-Pierre. He beat Matt Serra, which of course redeemed his other only loss, which that's basically one of his lesser wins through his reign, but it is also someone that beat him, so it does make it a little more substantial. I'll always stand that it was a puncher's chance that happened. You know what I mean? I think if Matt Serra and George had fought in their primes 10 times, Matt would have only gotten that one. Yeah. But you had Thiago Alves. He was on a 7-fight win streak when George beat him.
He's still be a 10 guy today.
Dan Hardy was on a 7 or 8-fight win streak.
4 in the UFC, but yeah, he was a Cage Warriors champ before coming over.
Yeah, I was about to say, and with these streaks, they're in very credible organizations. Cage Warriors, WEC at that time. I'll definitely count your streaks if you progressed over.
Yeah.
You also had, Josh Koscheck, who
again a top 10 guy today.
He was 4-1 in his previous 5, and at that time, his only loss in those 5 was to George. And you got Shields, Condit, Nick Diaz, who he hasn't technically had an official fight since that loss. Actually, he fought Anderson, but it's technically the no contest, non-official contest now ruling.
Yeah.
I think one of his biggest blemishes was Greasegate.
That probably was his biggest blemish in the beat.
I think
a lot of flack for that.
I think he was winning that fight rather easily, though. To be honest.
Easily.
It wasn't. I don't even know why they even did that.
Yeah,
it just made no sense. It's kind of like the Hamill thing with John Jones, or even like the Anthony Smith thing. Like John was easily winning those fights.
Yeah,
it's just weird. Like some of the stuff that they do when they're so far ahead on the cards, or close to finishing these guys.
But reverting back to John really quick before we introduce Mahfuz. When you said that you've seen him losing 3 times, Justus, I agree with that. I see him losing twice. I thought he lost the Reyes fight, and I thought he lost the first Gustafsson fight, both 49-47. And
I totally forget about that first Gustafsson fight. And what a good fight.
But one of my favorite fights, yeah.
The competition, I think he and GSP fought pretty similar competition, because I think both of their, strings of win streaks, more often than not, most of those guys would be in the top 10 today if they were in their prime. But what is your opinion on John Jones, Mahfuz?
First off, nice to finally be speaking with you, Brady.
Yes, sir.
Well, the reason I think Jones is the GOAT is because, I know that technically all these GOAT contenders like Jones, GSP, Silva, Fedor, they've all technically lost, but Jones is the only one of these guys to never have been finished in MMA competition. And he does have the controversial decision wins against guys like Reyes, and you can argue Gustafsson in the first fight and Santos, but all the other GOAT contenders have had controversial wins as well. So with GSP, there's Johnny Hendricks, and some will say the first fight with BJ Penn. With Fedor, you'll see Fabio Maldonado, and then with Anderson Silva, there's Derek Brunson. All the GOAT contenders, and if you want to throw Khabib in there, there's the Gleison Tebow fight. If you want,
continue.
so yeah, like basically all the GOAT contenders, they all have some sort of like virtual win, you know. And another thing is, like, I think the PED argument, like the drug argument, I think is weak because before USADA was implemented in UFC, like obviously, like, there's no proof, but like pretty much all the fighters were on some sort of thing. And like Jones, he was dominating against other users, basically. So like for example, in Pride, performance enhancing drugs, they were actually encouraged. Like they tested for recreational drugs like marijuana, for example, but when it came to like actual performance enhancers, they did not test.
It's so strange, right? Won championships like that.
Yeah, and so Shogun, he was from Pride. Rampage, he was from Pride. And then Lee Odo, he popped in the past. I forgot what it was for, but there's still the fact that he popped. Well, with Rashad, it's hard because he's never fought in Pride and he's never actually popped, but he did seem to have a fall off after USADA came into effect. And the team he's from, the Black Zillions, they're known for like they've been known to use drugs in the past. And then and Vitor, we know Vitor is like the biggest cheater in the game, in the history of the game.
Always has been.
And Chael's a cheater as well. Like it's really hard. Like the only opponent that Jones has ever faced that I can say with confidence that has like never used is Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, I could definitely say Daniel Cormier has never used for sure.
Yeah, that body type does not look like he'd be putting any performance enhancing drugs in there. Just pizza.
Right.
Chicken,
you can never let that
biscuits,
be you can never let that be the deciding factor, though.
For sure.
You guys know Tim Sylvia. That boy took so much steroids.
Josh
Let
Barnett,
me tell you what. Barnett had maybe a big chest, but Ben Rothwell. Does that look like a man that has been put some steroids in the ass cheeks? But
at least a little thicker. But
no, absolutely.
Weird. It probably
it's crazy because I just don't think TRT should be too much of an issue. But
if it's on the right ratio, like Alistair Overeem wasn't, like Vitor.
I agree. Like there should be levels to it. There's absolutely, if it's performed through a UFC doctor or something like that, I think that they should allow that because
they should allow. They should allow up to a 1-to-1 level, but they were literally, I think Alistair got caught with 14-to-1 ratios. It was either him or
and he looked like he looked like it too.
Boys. Kill somebody. Like, you're already dangerous as shit, man. What do you need that for? Like, god damn.
For sure.
And you notice after Alistair stopped taking it, he actually got a lot better. He got a lot more technical.
For sure. I mean, it was weird though. The first, after a year after all that USADA came through, the way his body type shifted, though, there was a noticeable, just like Vitor.
For sure, yep.
Vitor had probably the craziest body change. Yeah, I mean,
it was
like he had, it's weird.
It was 2013 when USADA was introduced to the UFC, correct?
I think it was
15. No, it was 2015.
Yeah, 15.
Oh, 2015. My apologies.
Jordan, before we get off the topic, what is your opinion on Justus St-Pierre, and then Mahfuz will move to you before we go to our third?
I mean, I firmly have him at 2 or 3. I flip-flop between him and Silva as being my number 2 on there, but I mean, the guy's a badass. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to sit there and say that these guys are not, in the top 3, no matter how you sort them out. But no, GSP he did face a murderer's row. I mean, I really feel like the only fight that I saw him lose other than the Sarah fight was the Johnny Hendricks fight. And, and he hasn't popped. He never popped. I mean, whether there's obviously speculations, but
I think that's why he left too.
Yeah. I mean, it very well could have been. But
Johnny Hendricks fell off after that.
Oh, Johnny Hendricks. Yeah. Johnny Hendricks took a deep, deep fall after that. Yeah. It was crazy. So, I mean, that was but no, GSP has a huge, I mean, when you say you beat BJ Penn and you beat the Diaz, beat Nick Diaz, you beat Johnny Hendricks, when Johnny Hendricks was awesome at that time.
Oh yeah. Josh Koscheck twice.
Oh yeah. That Josh Koscheck one was terrible. I mean, I remember being in the Philippines watching that fight. he just jabbed him in that eye
Mhm.
over and over and over again. That eye was fucking toast.
That was the fight where he really came on with the jab and started using it a lot. And he out-wrestled in that 5th round as he did throughout the first 3 in the first fight. It's like Josh Koscheck is one of the top 10, 15 wrestlers ever in the sport.
Well, yeah,
He's
he
so-
was an annoying little bastard, but it's
Oh,
like,
he was. Yeah, he's more.
But, you know,
yeah.
NCAA gold champion, though. You know, you can't really
Yeah.
deny it.
He's
I love
faced 3 times.
I did love seeing GSP pop him with that jab so many times. That hair just flopping around. It was a beautiful sight to see. But no, GSP is definitely a GOAT. You know,
sure.
but there's but yeah, I definitely don't see that being an issue at all as far as him being in the top 3 on my side. So
Yeah. What do you think, Mahfuz?
Well, first off, I can say with confidence that both Jones and GSP, like they're the clear number 2 to me. Like, I guess to all MMA fans, they're like, there's gonna be arguments for guys like Fedor, Anderson Silva. I can see that, and some guys will say Khabib, but like, okay, first off with Khabib, like I mentioned this to you guys before, like out of the 29 guys he's faced, only 5 of them were like elite competition, and like his first 16 opponents were like random tomato cans from Russia with losing records. And when he got to the UFC, he did face a couple of notable guys like Thiago Tavares and Gleison Tibau, but like I wouldn't consider them like amazing talent. And he also arguably lost to Tibau. It wasn't until he faced Rafael dos Anjos that that like he started actually facing elite competition. And another thing that like some people, like a lot of Khabib fans, and even like people who are not like super big fans of him, but like they're just like, they just appreciate him, like they get mad at this argument. But honestly, I think Khabib is a weight bully because of the fact that
he
walks around at the same weight as guys like Colby Covington, but he's always cut to 155. Like before he got into the UFC, he was actually fighting at welterweight.
Yeah, he was the welterweight.
And then when he got to the UFC, he started cutting down to 155. And like he's missed weight a bunch of times, and it's shown on camera how grueling his weight cut is. And Justus has also said this before. I don't know if it was on a previous video or if it was in the chat, but Khabib, like he believes Khabib did not make weight against Justin Gaethje. I also think
there were some people that said that
sketchy going on there. So yeah. And another thing about lightweight is not only are most of the guys smaller, but like most of them are strikers. Not a lot of them are like high level grapplers. Yeah. So he actually has a stylistic advantage against them. Whereas 70, you have like top level grapplers like Colby, Kamaru, Gilbert, and some will say Leon, but I guess he's more of a striker. And yeah, so Khabib, I don't even see Khabib as top 5 of all time. And personally, he's not even in my top 10, but I can definitely see the argument for him in top 10. Now with Anderson Silva and Fedor, both of them, along with Jones and GSP, they have an argument for being the MMA GOAT. Like I think no matter what, those four are the top 4 of all time, regardless of the order. The thing with Fedor and Anderson is they have a lot more losses than Jones and GSP, and their resumes are considerably weaker. Like they still have amazing resumes, but Fedor, he faced a lot of like along with all the top level competition he's beat, he's also faced a lot of random tomato cans that Pride just threw at him. And then with Anderson, like with Anderson, it's hard to say. Like he beat better competition than Fedor, but I wouldn't put his competition at the same I wouldn't put his competition, like the amount of top guys he's beat, at the same level as Jones and GSP. Like, for example, Forrest Griffin, like even though Forrest Griffin was a champion, I never looked at him as an amazing fighter. Like he was fun to watch, but
he was a good fighter. He wasn't amazing though. You're right.
He wasn't super technical. And then I can't remember everyone he's beaten, but like the only guys I think that were truly good who Anderson beat were Vitor, Dan Henderson, Rich Franklin, I guess. Some will say Chael. I think I could throw Chael in there, but other than that, I can't really like off the top of my head, I can't really think of who Anderson's beat. Now with Jones and GSP, like these are the top two guys to me, no matter what, because these guys, they without a doubt have the best resumes in the history of the sport. GSP's beat like 11 world champions, some shit like that, and then Jones, like I really haven't memorized all the killers Jones has beat. So Jones has beat Brandon Vera, who was a one heavyweight champion, right? Was it?
What's up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I just didn't understand what you said.
Oh, okay. Hold up. Is Brandon Vera? He was a champion, right? Not in UFC, but in another organization.
Yeah, he won the belt and won.
Yeah.
Yeah, years afterwards.
He lost it, but like
and then who else? And then Ryan Bader. He was a double champion in Bellator. And then obviously there's Shogun, Rampage, Lyoto, Rashad, Vitor, Chael's not a champion. There's DC, like
Chael's was the WEC champion, just not officially. He won that belt.
Oh yeah, that's Paulo Filo, right?
Yeah, Paulo Filo missed weight. That was his problem. Why it wasn't a title fight.
Okay.
Nowadays, if that happens, it's still a title fight for the challenger or whoever didn't miss weight.
Yep.
Yeah, just the person who missed weight can't get the belt if they're the challenger.
Going back to, let's see, Khabib, you're right. He did only fight 4 or 5 elite fighters, but you're like guys like Tebow and Tavares, they were fitting opponents for the time. And then going back to GSP, I think he's, aside from Jones, obviously the most dominant fighter ever. He went 33, 34 rounds undefeated. He wrestled all the best wrestlers. Josh Koscheck, Johnny Hendricks, Jake Shields, so handily. John Fitch, Matt Hughes, so handily. He outboxed the best boxers, BJ Penn, Nick Diaz. Like, he's the best athlete that's ever been.
Don't forget about Thiago Alves, too.
Yeah,
he was a
Alves.
force back
Someone
in
who
the day.
Josh Koscheck could not out-wrestle, that he out-wrestled for 5 rounds. Like, it's just, and people say he lost to Johnny Hendricks fight. I thought that could have went either way, 48-47. I really don't see that many people were that upset with it. It was such a close fight. He took Johnny down 3 times and got taken down twice. Like, he out-wrestled everybody.
I think
it's mostly due to how George looked.
Well, yeah, I mean, he never tried to finish his opponents. He didn't like hurting people.
I think that's basically the biggest discrepancy on why a lot of people do. If you look
especially
at it
when he was
from
fighting,
the way a judge does, which is it has to be from per se a statistical standpoint with the rules that apply. George edged it. And what your face looks like and I guess I call that good judging because
I don't think it should be based on
by the rule set that the rule set goes is dude, it doesn't matter how you look after the fight. Getting a cut in round 1 shouldn't affect how the fight is scored in round 5. If so, the Diaz brothers would lose every fight they've ever had.
Like, dude, I was actually about to say that. Like, by round 1, they're bleeding to death.
Yeah.
If they don't finish the fight, they would lose it, right? But yeah, that's the thing. Like, you and I could fight. Like, I could hit you 400 times, not leave a single mark on you. You could hit me once and open a huge gash on me. It's just
right, but who's the winner? From yeah, but I guess I agree mostly with what Mahfuz said as far as Khabib goes. The only thing I've always disagreed with anybody is weight bully. I do think Khabib should have been a welterweight, and I only think that because he missed weight multiple times. As far as being a weight bully, Gleason Tebow, just as big as Khabib was.
He's actually wrong.
Tony Ferguson is about 180 pounds outside of fight camp, and we know that because he had to cut 24 pounds in a week, and that was right after cutting weight. So in reality, he's probably a little bit heavier when not cutting multiple times.
Michael Chiesa spent his whole career at lightweight.
As I say, Dan Hooker is a massive lightweight. Justin Gaethje is not
made
massive.
145 pounds like 15
I don't know how he
missed
did it.
weight. Never missed weight. It's like how.
Dustin Poirier, I think 2 or 3 fights ago, I remember I was watching his bout, and the commentators had basically talked about how Dustin Poirier had stated how he might be looking at welterweight because he walks around at about 195 pounds.
That man has thick over the
Yeah, it's
Yep.
his
Oh,
chest,
for sure.
his pectoral muscles, and his shoulders are
Mhm.
crazy. He's
Right.
still got them little 145 legs though.
Right. Did we all get our pieces out on Habib? We all talked about Habib, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
believe so.
Next
There's
up,
one more thing I gotta say on Khabib. So like,
okay.
like Justin was saying, T-Bow is also a weight bully, and Khabib's hardest fight was against another weight bully. So like that basically like that basically confirms my thoughts on how Khabib would do at 170.
Okay.
Well, you can say his easiest fight was also against Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, or Justin. His
I was
last
about
two,
to
like, he
say.
just gets better and better and better. But something that I said to Justice last night that no one understands, that was his first 16 fights. You're right. They were all against people who did not deserve to fight him. They were all contested in a ring, however. That was his second fight ever inside a cage. Go back and watch that fight. He chased single legs on the cage the whole time.
And for the ladies and gents that don't know, it really is a massive difference when you transition from, for say, a four-sided square to an octagon.
I like cages.
It makes different angles very, very different.
Your footwork is different. You get cut off so much easier. The takedowns are different. Khabib has always had really good open range takedowns. The guys usually sprawl on him, but he's able to circle to their back and fucking get them down with a single or by taking their back.
He just keeps on going after it until he gets it. I mean,
yeah,
it's not a matter if he's gonna get it. He will get it eventually, though.
Yeah.
And I will say, Mahfuz, I do partially agree with like, would he have been as successful in welterweight? Maybe not. I'm not going to sit here and say he'd definitively lose though, just because
I don't think he'd defend.
We can't even pick 3 rounds where he got beat. You know what I mean? He really was a dominant force, but I do think someone should have stepped in and basically, he wasn't a lightweight due to the fact of him not just being able to make the weight. It had nothing to do of his weight though, because there are other fighters that are his walk around weight and they do make the cut. Dustin's never had a problem. I think he's made weight every time of his career, hasn't he?
Never missed it.
And he is easily just as big. I mean,
that 45 or 55. Someone that we were talking about before Mahfuz came on is Jose Aldo. Now, I just want to start out by saying I started out watching Jose Aldo because I started out watching the WEC in 09. The first fight I saw him in, he knocked out Cub Swanson in 8 seconds. And then he beat Mike Braun for the belt. What people don't realize, Jose Aldo is actually the youngest world champion in mixed martial arts history, not John Jones.
Thank you.
He just turned 23. He just turned 23 when he did that. Jones was about to turn 24 when he beat Shogun. The WEC featherweight belt and bantamweight belt are the same as the UFC featherweight and bantamweight.
Exactly. Thank you.
So I just want to say that. What's y'all's opinions on Jose Aldo?
Well, I think he's one of the most underrated ever nowadays, anyways. When I first started, well, not started, but in my younger years of watching UFC, a lot of people respected him. A lot of people still didn't have him as like that GOAT conversation. I just think he's really underappreciated.
Yeah.
I do think he's not destroyed, but there's a part of him mentally that will never be the same.
Absolutely, Connor.
As far as throwing leg kicks and stuff, but he go look at that resume, go look at how he beat half of them.
Insane.
I mean, and he's still doing it, he's not doing it to even being a partially mentally beaten fighter. He's still beating top class guys and only losing to top class guys. It's just crazy. I really could put him per se as my number one GOAT. I think I'd be at a very high up climb of a hill.
I love you for that, Justus.
Because I think a lot of fans with losses, it's really detrimental for a lot of people, and that's fine. These are all just opinions we're expressing. However, I would like to see John or even George or anybody. I mean, we go to about, I'm on the Wikipedia here. Yeah, we go to about his 15th fight. I mean, I could really pick apart and pick out some good people before that. But we go to about his 15th fight where he got that 8-second knockout over Cub. I mean, it's just where it starts and doesn't stop. We got Cub Swanson, Mike Brown,
Well, by the way,
Uriah Faber, Mark Hominick.
His first 6 WEC fights, all knockouts.
Yes, sir. We got Kenny Florian, Chad Mendez, Frankie Edgar,
Kenny Florian
Son John. And he was at one point, that was a middleweight. He beat a middleweight.
Yeah, Kenny fought for the Ultimate Fighter trophy at middleweight, fought for the welterweight belt, fought for the lightweight belt, fought for the featherweight belt. That's 4 titles he fought for.
Yeah, and I mean, he made it look easy on him.
Dude, he's so great. Kenny still can't feel his leg. He still has a dead leg from that fight. It's
I bet. And I mean, just even when the fall off started to happen, I mean, we're talking about him losing to what could be the next upcoming GOAT, Max Holloway.
Yep.
I definitely think he could be there for sure. So young, so good, way more to offer and go. He's lost to Peter Yan. I mean, so damn good.
He was doing so well in that fight, too. If that was a 3-round fight, he would have won 29-28.
Exactly. We got Marlon Moraes, very good fighter. I'm not going to sit here and, say he's like GOAT status or something, but very elite fighter. Alexander Volkanovski. I might be a little biased because I love Volk, but I don't see that man losing for a long time. But he did, though. No, absolutely. Alexander couldn't necessarily dominate Jose. And again, he did what these are men
he had
beating him.
He just outworked him.
What's that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely outworked him.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just saying right now that in the fight with Aldo and Volkanovski, he basically just outworked Max. Same with the first. No, my bad. Sorry, Volkanovski basically outworked Aldo. Like, he didn't do any damage. He basically just did enough to win.
Yeah, and he kept his defense high.
Yes, and same with the first Max fight. But yeah, going on to Jose Aldo, I agree with you guys that he's super underrated. He's definitely the featherweight GOAT in my eyes because you guys were just talking about all the competition he's been. So hold up, let me just pull up his resume on my computer.
It's so crazy once you start looking at it, bud.
Frankie Edgar twice, fucking Chan Sung Jung, Mark Hominick. Mark Hominick was a beast, dude. Not many people realize. He was a 22-0 pro kickboxer that Aldo just beat the shit out of him.
He gave him a bad hematoma that fight too.
Yeah,
he fucked him up on that with that hematoma shit. So
that was the first time I ever saw a hematoma too. That was crazy,
dude. He looked crazy as shit. Him and Joanna should be dating with that type of shit.
I think a lot of the flack Aldo got when he was champion is because he was kind of an annoying champion, to be honest. He got hurt all the fucking time. He turned into Justus St-Pierre after he won the belt because he didn't want to lose it. That doesn't change how dominant he was in all those fights.
And I agree with that completely. He got injured a lot, and he started getting pretty selective and picky.
Yes.
And that definitely, it's definitely per se diminishes it. But when we go back per se on, we look at this video, we've talked about overlooking hit and runs on pregnant women, greasing up during fights. So I think we can look past a guy getting injured for training. You know what I mean? If anything, it's probably the lesser of the evils. But no, yeah.
For at least most of the time when that happened. So
it was just crazy how fat, with how Conor beat him, how his confidence kind of went to shit after that. It seemed like he fought differently completely after that. I mean,
he's gone to a very boxing heavy style, and it's not like a Philly shell, but he keeps his hands up now.
He brought the leg kicks back in the Yan fight. I'm so glad because he did turn into a boxer, and I hate it.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I felt like where he started going downhill, it was when he stopped kicking people's fucking legs like they were soccer balls.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because when he stopped doing that, he became. Because look, when he was throwing those leg kicks, people were out of the fight by the third round.
Yeah,
if they were even close to it because they could barely move.
No one ever
look at those leg. No, look at what Conor had. How it happened with him and Poirier. It wasn't like he didn't have any good spots in those fights with that Poirier fight. But those leg kicks are obviously what did him in. It wasn't Poirier's hands. I mean, obviously that's what ended it, but those leg
It was
kicks.
the leg kick to set it up, man. You get kicked in
Yeah.
the leg enough and it hurts. You don't want it anymore. You're focused on the leg kicks.
Well, you can't
in
move
this
either.
era too of
Yeah,
low
that too.
calf kicks, just imagine if Jose Aldo's coach kind of grasped that a little bit and was like, "Hey, Aldo, let's do some low calf kicks, buddy." But a crazy, you know,
He
it
ran
really.
two of those
I've always been a thing of like the mental aspect of fighting, because it really is what I think the most important is you know, the mental part. Fun fact. So you guys remember when Jose Aldo gave Uriah Faber that clinic with the leg kicks, right?
Yep.
So you put all those leg kicks combined in that fight. He threw more leg kicks in that fight than he's thrown all together since fighting McGregor.
Really? That's interesting. I believe it. That don't make sense. I was so upset with that fight because, dude, it was about to be just as good of a striking fight as we've ever seen in our lives in the last 13 seconds. Plus, I grew up watching Jose Aldo. It's not that I wanted Conor to lose. I really like Conor too because I saw how special he was. But man, that was so upsetting. And he never gave Jose Aldo his rematch.
I wanted that rematch because I agree. I'm a huge Conor fan. I'm a huge Conor fan. But that rematch needed to happen.
I know.
And it's just. And I think Aldo could go up to 155 if they wanted to do, because I don't think if Conor doesn't win this fight and get to the next, like get the belt by the end of the year, I think it's time to fight legacy fight, fights that are like entertain the fans to make the money. And I think
that's not
I don't
a bad
think anybody
idea
complain.
if he lost.
Yeah, if it lost, I mean, look, Max Holloway would be a great fight for them to fight again, because they were, Holloway was he was kind of unexperienced. He's gotten better.
I don't think Max Holloway was old enough to drink during that fight. He might have been just 21. Actually, he was a very young kid.
But then you got Aldo. That would be a great fight again. I still want to see Nate 3 with him.
Yeah, that'll definitely.
That's going to happen regardless. Even if he wins for the belt, they're going to they'll put that shit back up on there because the worst case scenario is Nate gets a belt, and it's not like he sells tickets regardless.
Yeah, for sure. You reminded me of something, Jordan, when you said that Conor Aldo 2 needed to happen. It did, but he never gave him his rematch, and then he went right up to 155 and challenged for the belt. The UFC let him do that. You know what the fucked up thing is? Jose Aldo wanted to do that when he was champion. He wanted to go up lightweight, and they didn't fucking let him.
That's right, actually.
The UFC didn't start allowing that shit until Conor started. Conor was the first person that they really allowed to do any of these types of things. I don't know what was going on, but like, think about it. Like nobody was going to fight for a belt again unless they relinquished the belt ahead of time. And they allowed, they didn't let Conor defend it like they let Nunes defend her stuff, but
it's because Conor just wanted to go off to the next thing. He won the title.
I think Dana knew that. I think he knew that they was going to stay there. And I don't think Conor would want to cut back down to 145 because he looked crazy as hell at 145, and so did Poirier looked crazy as hell at 145 too.
He put on
Max Holloway to this day looks crazy at 145.
Oh, he does, but he looks small at lightweight. It's crazy. But Conor put on a lot of mass for that Nate Diaz rematch. I don't even know if he could make 45 anymore. He already walked around to like 75. It would take.
I think he'd have to take off a year and a half to get down to that and cut it right.
Yeah,
because you're going to lose that muscle regardless. You can't. He doesn't have 35 pounds of fat to lose.
Right.
No.
But water and all that good stuff. But Holloway was one of those people that I really thought he was going to be a force to go up from 145 to 155. Just his boxing. And when Poirier just went out there and just, that volume is crazy, and the strength is a little bit. Poirier has a little bit more power in his punches.
Yeah, that's what the fight difference was. It was the power. You could tell.
Yeah.
Max he had his moments in that fight. He was.
Oh yeah.
He was technically just as good. It's just the power difference was not. It was so evident.
Which is honestly,
he could be the next GOAT. The upcoming. He's not up and coming because he's been around for so long. But to be only under 30.
Yeah,
it's fucking nuts.
He still got 5 years before, 2-3 years before he's at his best, or should be that long.
I think he should definitely start being mindful because I've never been a man per se where it's about age. It's more or less, about the fights you've been in. For instance, Jose Aldo. Some people, when you look at him and think about his career, you think he's like getting close to 40, and I don't even think he's 35 yet.
He's 34.
Yeah, technically he should be about in his prime right now, but we all know
Yeah, he's been through too
after.
many wars.
Yeah, I think as long as Max maybe touches up on a few things, but there are those anomalies in life with Francis's strength, Max's chin.
Yeah, dude,
maybe he just might be able to take it.
Well, remember Max, like before he fought, I mean, I can't remember who he lost to, but I mean, his eyes just looked different. And they walked, I mean, they were saying like he looked like he was loopy, like he was like,
oh, that was
they were
going
worried.
Brian Ortega fight. They had to,
Okay,
Yeah.
and
They had to cancel that bout and everything.
yeah, Michael Bisping
Yeah.
called him out on it when he was interviewing him.
Mm-hmm. Because I remember I bet, I mean, I like to gamble a little bit, and I bet on, like I like betting on Max. I didn't bet on him for that Volkanovski fight, and luckily that panned out for me. Even though I was like the whole fight, I was like, "Damn it, Max is fucking me up. I'm gonna lose this money."
Right.
But luckily the judges got that one wrong, and for my case, anyways. But
I know
Max
that feeling, bud.
yeah, and Max is a beast, man. He'll be the next person that we're talking about in the next couple of years with his resume.
Yeah.
And the shit that he's been doing. I mean, you could legitimately throw him in the top 10 now if you wanted to. If you could at least make a case for him, but it's there.
What are you gonna say, Mom?
Do you guys have any other type of per se, like who you think is an underrated, like very underrated person?
Well,
Frank Shamrock.
what Mahfuz?
Frank Shamrock.
Frank
It's a good
Shamrock.
name. I mean, for today's, he wouldn't beat a lot of guys today, but he's a fucking legend. He's like the most successful fighter for the first 10 years of it.
I was about to say, I think Frank gets a lot of pioneer love.
It is.
I guess I wouldn't know what else to really give him. I'm not saying he's bad, or I don't think it was deserving the praises he gets.
The first well-rounded fighters.
I was about to say he kind of showed what really the basis, the blueprint of really what it's going to be a successful modern day fighter.
He was the man. When people would go to train, everyone wanted to train with him.
Honestly, I'm going to throw Daniel Cormier out there.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
I think
let's talk about Daniel Cormier.
I think he's not heavily disrespected, but definitely heavily underappreciated.
He definitely wasn't until he won the heavyweight belt.
I think if he wasn't such a nice person, we could have been talking about the heavyweight GOAT. He was 13-0 as a heavyweight before facing Stipe. He only went down to light heavyweight out of complete respect for Cain Velasquez. And that turned out to be a terrible idea in hindsight because Cain didn't do anything with it.
Didn't even have to.
I mean, this man, and these weren't, no-name heavyweights. You got Jeff Monsoon, Devin Cole,
dude, Jeff
Antonio
Monsoon
Silva.
So experienced. Yeah, dude, he was thrown to the wolves right out of the gate.
I was about to say,
fucking
Barnett, Frank Mir, Nelson.
Australian dude's name, Soa Palele. Dude, he fought so many elite dudes before he even got to the UFC.
No, yeah. I mean, he had Tony Johnson and Lucas Brown for your third and fourth fight.
Dude,
that's crazy.
Tony Johnson has like 100 fights, bro.
No,
He's like 60 and 30 or 70 and 20 or something like that.
I mean, he won the King of the Cage championship, the XMA. Yeah, he won King of the Cage champion. He's an XMA heavyweight champion. He's a Strikeforce champion, UFC lightweight and heavyweight champion.
I just knew Strikeforce in UFC. That's crazy. That's awesome.
He only, he has a loss to John Jones. He has 2 losses to Stipe Miocic.
Best light heavyweight ever, best heavyweight ever.
I was about to say, I mean, and people, when you ask people to make a list, you'll be lucky to see their top 10, and Daniel will maybe be in the 8th or 9th. Yeah. And it's the same thing with Jose Aldo. And I just think it's so, I don't know. MMA fans certainly live in the now a lot of the times.
They do. They love to forget. Like people saying Kamaru Usman's already better than GSP. They love to forget.
Yeah, let's not get
that's insane.
GSP didn't have better takedowns. Let's act like he didn't have a better jab. Let's act like he didn't have better entries. Let's act like he's not just every bit as good of an athlete. Like, come on, though.
I mean,
Usman hasn't even been excited.
Switch kick.
No, yeah. Well, it was
No.
been a little more exciting lately. What, the switch kick?
Yeah, as I say, I'd like to just see Usman throw a switch kick. I
Usman's
mean,
really, dude, he's taken off, man. His striking is getting very
Yeah.
dangerous, but it's not Jordan St-Pierre's level yet. It may
Nope,
be.
and
yeah.
It's not yet.
GSP
I think,
dominated for years. I mean, Usman's been a champion for what, 2 years tops now. He's fought three people. I mean, he might not. Yeah, he's fought 3 people. 2 of the people were the same. I mean, Masvidal twice and Covington once. Right? That's his title defenses.
Yeah.
Gilbert Burns as well. Gilbert Burns.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Gilbert Burns. That's right. Okay, and Usman has gotten better. I mean, I used to.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even want to watch a Usman fight. I can't stand him. I honestly don't like his personality. He's not a likable person. He switches up on what he says.
Yes.
He's fake. He's fake. But he's gotten better.
Go ahead, Mahfuz.
I was just saying that Usman, he's kind of copying Connor's personality. I recently saw a video where Usman was quoting the same stuff Connor was saying not too long ago, and it just made me realize just how fake the guy is. Like,
Don't surprise
I thought he was whack, but yeah.
I like Kamaru. I met Kamaru. He is a nice guy, when I was in front of him, but watching him from the sidelines like that, he does appear to be, I hate to use this word, but fake. He seems to, say things that he thinks people want to hear. You know what I mean? Rather than what the case actually is.
He always has a third person speaking persona going on too. You know what I mean? Like they'll be like Chiesa, I mean, this is just an example. Burns got you with a good jab in the fight. How'd that make you feel? And he'd be like, Usman doesn't feel pain. Like,
right. Or, I had to come back from it. It happened in practice before. I just had to come back from it like the champion that I am. It's like, bro, you sound like Tito Ortiz, man. Come on. Like,
that's a very unlikable guy.
Stop with this gold on your shield shit and just fucking win your fights.
No, he's got a little ways to go. I mean, does he have the skills to have an argument to be there?
Oh,
Woodley
absolutely.
felt like Woodley said he was the welterweight GOAT they tried to do that.
That gave me
to bring. Oh, yeah, I mean, Woodley's very delusional, but they say these things
moments.
The cherry picker
because they want GSP to come out of retirement. I mean, GSP will be 40 years old and still be getting called out by some of these new guys. 40. Oh, okay, yeah, shit, there it is. But I don't think that GSP would have much of an issue with Usman. It'd probably be a good fight. It'd be a good fight. Yeah, it'd be a good fight because Usman's striking has gotten significantly better over the last couple fights. But I mean, let's be real here, though. I mean, him knocking out Masvidal the way it happened, it's the same way that when Khabib hit Conor and knocked him down.
Yeah, because he was afraid to stick on.
Yeah, that's all it is. It ain't because they have
better striker,
like great striking. I mean, like, did he pop him with a good right? Absolutely, he did. Mm-hmm. Just like Khabib, he knocked Conor down. Instead of like Khabib trying to get down there and start beating up, Khabib went for another takedown. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things. These wrestlers who do pop them, they know they're smart enough to know. I'll give them credit. They're smart enough to know that they're not strikers, because if it was a boxing match, or kickboxing match, they get handled.
That's something a lot of people also don't understand. They think because someone gets struck, oh, he's a better striker. Like, I got in an argument with someone. It was like, man, when was it? It was when Nate Diaz fought Ben Henderson, and he was just getting smashed. And I was like, dude, if this was a boxing fight, Nate would fuck him up, dude. And almost got in a fight over it because the dude was so delusional. It's like, I'm done.
Honestly, Nate Diaz should have just been a boxer, because
it's
his biggest weakness is, and I'm so surprised because when you see per se a lot of the fighters nowadays that fight Nate, they don't go back and look at the Rory McDonald tape or the Benson Henderson tape. Like, heavy leg kicks, stay on the outside. If he goes to come in, throw a few swarms and take him down. No, it was tried and true. And he's not a guy that ever changed his style at all. Besides his weird turn his back thing he started doing in his last bout. Right. That was odd, but no, yeah, you gotta love the Diaz bros sometimes.
No, but both of them have the issue of taking all those leg kicks and just eating them. They rarely check them, and that's why I was getting irritated with the second Conor fight with him. Conor was cleaning house with those leg kicks, and then obviously dropping them with the hands too. But it's like from rounds 2 through 4, he didn't even throw more than 1 or 2 leg kicks around, when that would have been the key to victory, in my opinion.
I think the only time I remember Nate ever checking leg kicks, and he only checked a couple of them in this fight, was the Michael Johnson fight. That's the only time
where he honestly looked like his absolute best.
Dude,
besides that Pettis fight, that Anthony Pettis fight,
that fight,
I don't know what the hell Nate did that camp, that week, that whatever.
He was taking it seriously, man. You remember when he called out Conor McGregor after that? He fucking wanted it. Like, that's he really wanted it. Like, that fight, his Cerrone fight and his Pettis fight, it's crazy because those are like 3 of the only decisions on his record. He might have one more that I'm not thinking. Josh Neer, that's the other one. But dude, it's crazy. He's
tormented. He tormented Cowboy too. I mean, he fucked up
man.
Cowboy. Cowboy looked terrible.
He had him really pissed off mentally too.
Mm-hmm.
Cowboy admitted that too. He was like, my biggest mistake that fight is I took what he said like really personal.
He said going in, he fights better when he's mad too. But yeah, 28-0 pro kickboxer. He just boxed the fuck up.
Yeah,
he did. And same with Michael Johnson. He had Michael Johnson pissed off real bad too, because there was an altercation in the lobby.
Great striker.
Yeah, Michael Johnson's just one of the most. Man, that's an underrated, but he does it to himself. He's maddening because like you watch him a couple of fights, and the next time it's like, what the hell?
He could have.
If that man
so special.
If that man had 5-round cardio, he would probably be a champion at the very least.
He's like 19-16 or 19-17 at this point. He's really got one of the worst records for any elite fighter. But dude, he has 3 wins over long-time top 5 lightweights. Tony Ferguson, he was the only person to beat Tony Ferguson in Ferguson's first 16 UFC fights. Who was the other one? Barboza, long-time top 5 guy. And then he KO'd Dustin Poirier.
And he was doing this while most of these men were at the top or starting to really hit their ceilings.
Poirier wasn't quite in the top 5 yet, but Barboza was in the top 6 at the time. And who was
that was definitely probably Barboza's best as far as like performances right around that time at lightweight. Yeah. I love that guy at fucking featherweight though. Oh my god.
Me too.
He's looking
physical lightweight, man. Like, how does he make that weight?
I was about to say, when you saw him cut to 155, you asked how he did it. Now he does 145.
Yeah, he was always so cut. But
I need his nutritionist, man. I got to start losing some weight. He seems like the man to talk to.
The last name on this list that I have, anyways, we need to give him a mention. He's not the best ever. He could have went down as the best ever, though. One of the 2 champions to walk away last year that we did not talk about, Henry Cejudo. What do we think of Henry Cejudo?
Ooh. That's a hard one, man. I think Cejudo is usually where, when I make a top 10 list, that's the type of person that ends up around in my 8 or 9 area. Maybe 7 if I really sat down and thought about it. Cejudo was really good. I was a really big fan of Cejudo actually before he was a champion, and what's kind of sad is I became a non-fan of his after. I know his cringy act is just that, an act. Nevertheless, annoyance is still annoyance, and that's all I really found it to be, was annoying. And it was just trying too hard. But that's not going to make me put you down on my list. I just think he needed to stay around longer. If he had stayed around longer, kept fucking fighting, he probably would have kept climbing up that list.
Well, all that cringy shit, it would put all this pressure on himself. So then there's no way he can lose. But it's like the adversity he had to overcome in the second Demetrius fight, first off, and then the Marias fight. He's got all the fight and all the dogfight in him of anybody in the entire world. After winning an Olympic gold medal, being a world champion in wrestling as well, to being a 2-time flyweight and bantamweight champion, it's remarkable. But you're right, he didn't stay around too long. And I wasn't talking to him. I was listening to Sean O'Malley's podcast. He was talking, or his coach was talking about Henry Cejudo, or no, Steve-O. They had Steve-O on, and he said he was talking to Henry at the last UFC event, the pay-per-view event, and he's like, "Why did you walk away so soon? You said the Dominic Cruz fight was a tune-up fight." and then you just walk away. That seems kind of like a fake legacy to me, because Dominic didn't fight in 3.5 years and he was coming off a loss. You're using that as your title defense?
Not just that, but and this isn't his fault at all. So please, for the viewers, keep that on mind, and everyone we're talking to. Like when he beat TJ Dillashaw, people would be like, he beat the best version because he was on steroids. And I don't think people realize that TJ had to take EPO to make weight.
Yeah, that
and
was
when
not
he
the best
made that weight,
that was
quite literally the worst version of TJ since Tough Days.
What's it along? Yeah.
It was just And I remember when he won the belts, his first thing he did is he called out Uriah Faber.
Yep, I remember that, and Cody Garbrandt, who was 0-3 in his last 3.
Exactly, and I'm just like, are you trying to be unlikable to get watched? It just didn't make much sense to
I forgot about that. That was stupid as shit.
When he yelled that out, I was just like, Cejudo, everything you just did in that octagon was just undone by what you said.
Like, his performance against Moraes was honestly maybe my favorite performance ever, other than maybe like TJ and Barral won. Like, dude, the
135 performance, probably.
Yeah, dude, he didn't have either of his legs either. He was like Thiago Santos against John Jones. He didn't tear anything. He just had bruises on everything. But
no, absolutely.
What do you think, Jordan, of Henry Cejudo?
I'm not a huge fan of Henry Cejudo. I think his resume is not all there to be considered even in my top 10. I think I'd put Liddell and all these other older guys in there above him at this point. But he's got the Olympic medal. Yeah, he's a 2-weight champion, but I feel like he needed to stick around a little bit, because I really didn't even start paying attention to him until the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Him and Khabib, they both needed to stay around long.
Yeah.
It's such a shame.
No, absolutely.
Like, at least GSP walked out on top, but man, at least he did everything he needed to do,
Yes.
He did everything he needed to do.
Yeah, no, there was really nothing for him at that time. I mean, if you really think about it, George would have had to have waited like 2 to 3 years and face Robbie, I guess.
Yeah, Robbie, and then Tyron.
That, or he would have had to have fought Carlos again. Johnny, he would have immediately got a rematch with Johnny.
That's what
that pissed Dana White off very much.
Dude, that made me so mad. He was so mad at GSP. He's like, you owe it to Johnny Hendricks for this. It's like, motherfucker, no, he doesn't. He doesn't owe Johnny Hendricks shit. Johnny's next fight is going to be for the belt, whether GSP is retired or not. And history shows that. It's like, what does he owe Johnny? Seriously.
Let alone, what does George owe the UFC? That man's the first million pay-per-view salesman. Like, he's the first one.
I was not.
He's the first. You had people like Chuck Liddell and Tito, but even their super fight grudge matches weren't even as big as the persona of George in his time.
Yeah.
And he was basically one of those, like, the first people where he could dry hump you the entire fight. People are going to tune in to watch it, though.
Well,
you know what I mean?
He beat everybody, and I mean everybody, with the very basics. A jab, switch kick to the head, a fucking spinning back kick to the body, a double leg. He beat everybody with those 4 things.
No, yeah, he had a beautiful base point karate style, and
and that's what helped.
It worked really well.
That's what helped his wrestling so much too, along with his athleticism, getting in and out so quickly. But before we sign off, are there any names that we didn't mention that you three believe deserve to be?
No, but there's a bunch of things that I wanted to say that I didn't get to say.
Okay.
So when I look at GOAT status, I look at 2 things as like top criteria. So a fighter's resume and then their longevity. So before, you guys were talking about Cejudo, Usman, Aldo, Holloway, and then obviously Jones and GSP. So like with Cejudo, I had him in my top 5 shortly after his retirement, but then I went and looked back. His top 4 wins. So there's DJ, which was a controversial split decision win.
I did not have him winning that fight. I'll just say that right now.
I did. I thought he won.
I had him
just too close to give it to the challenger, personally.
It was definitely close.
And it's weird because I wanted Cejudo to win, but after the fight, when they raised his hand, I was just like,
Well, it's kind of like when Robbie fought Hendricks and won that split decision. That was really fucking close too, and he took the title from the champ.
I felt a little bad for Hendricks on
I
that
thought
one.
Hendricks won that fight, but yeah, I thought Cejudo won the rematch.
But yeah, and then like Dominic Cruz was past his prime, and like Justice was, PJ had to take EPO to cut weight. Marlon Moraes was the only fight, like he was the only fighter out of those four that Henry beat without controversy, and that was like that, and it was a fighter in his prime.
Oh yeah, the Cruz stoppage was shit. I forgot about that.
Yep.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't have Henry in my top 10 of all time. With Usman, like I was saying, resume and longevity are not on his side. He's only been on top since 2019, and his wins are like against like an old Tyron Woodley, and then Gilbert Burns is a good win, but he used to be a lightweight. Same with Masvidal. Masvidal was a lightweight, and then the Colby fight, it's his best win. But I've said this many times before. That fight has asterisk next to it because of the fact that Usman faked a nut shot early in the fight before Colby's jaw got broken. And this, like, I know this is just speculation, but Colby could have won if the ref did not pause the fight. At the very least, he could have ensured that the fight went in his favor. And then with Jose Aldo, so you guys were talking about like featherweight ghosts and stuff. Like with like, to me, it's not even close. Like, the thing with Jose Aldo is like longevity is on his side, and I'd argue his resume is slightly better than Max. So he's beaten Cub Swanson, Mike Faber, like all these guys. And he's like from 2004, which was his debut, to his loss to Conor in 2015. He only lost once early in his career against some guy I don't know. And even in the Conor loss, Conor was just getting him really angry, and Aldo was not fighting like cool head. No? And then with the wildly. Yeah, and then with the Max losses, like he was not like he was out of his prime for those losses. And then with by the time he lost to Volkanovski and then Moraes and Jan, he was obviously not the same fighter. And with Moraes, you could argue that he won that fight as well. And then going on to Jones and GSP, because I didn't say everything I wanted to say on there. Brady, you were saying earlier that GSP was beating guys at their own game. Jones was doing the same thing as well. Like I remember back in his prime, he was engaging strikers in the stand-up, wrestlers in the clinch, and grapplers on the ground, and like he was beating people at their own game. And another thing is, like, when you look at all the guys they've beaten, I would argue Jones' resume is a little bit more impressive than GSP's. Like, I don't think anyone could compete with the murderous row of competition he faced. And also, another interesting thing about GSP that not too many people know is that GSP, he actually left. He left shortly before USADA came into effect, and he only fought once after USADA came into effect against Michael Bisping, who was a fighter older than him and had one eye. And honestly, I don't view Bisping, like, I know a lot of people like Bisping, and I might get hate for this, but I never viewed him as like a top fighter who was on that level. You know, like I feel
wasn't the rightful champion.
Yeah, and like he vacated the belt instead of facing Yoel or Whitaker, and like that just put asterisks to me too. And also, in his last fight, he turned down WADA testing after asking about EPO and HES testing being a part of it.
GSP did?
So like he turned down WADA testing because he asked about EPO and HGH testing being a part of it, and he turned that fight down, and then he returned for the Bisping fight after that, and like it was just.
That leads me to be fair, though, WADA testing is a joke. It's very, very easy to beat. It's been shown. I will say, though, as far as comp goes, not even breaking down George's entire career, I kind of like to go from that UFC 79 standpoint. So that would be
really came into his own.
Let's see here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fights, including the Bisping when he came back. When you add up all of those fighters' wins, losses, and winning percentage, all those combined
They all
is an
agree.
84% win percentage. John Jones is about roughly 65.
Really? That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Well,
That's so interesting.
you got to
Yeah.
think of people like Anthony Smith, you know what I mean? Like those types of guys, they were on streaks, but they also had some losses to their career.
He was just the next guy that John hadn't fought.
I was about to say, and no, absolutely. And I'm not saying, you know, that was kind of like the same thing with Thiago Alves. It was kind of just like a guy that George hadn't fought.
Yeah.
But at the very same time, you know, during that moment, Thiago Alves was on a 7-fight win streak. I think John Jones definitely beat people at their own game early in his career. He even said in an interview, he kind of wanted to do that. But I definitely think once again, and you know, Mahfuz, as someone who has John ahead, you said your biggest thing is longevity. And I think we can see right now, George hitting about, you know, his mid-30s, he's surviving fights.
Well, he was better for longer. I mean, he came back at the elite of the elite. John ain't the elite of the elite anymore. He looks more average every time he fights.
And that's what I'm saying is like, you know, even in a time where George was still dominating, John Jones now is kind of surviving.
Yeah.
That's good. And you know, I think a lot of these wins that he's gotten recently is, I always fall on the basis of, if it's really close, you don't give it to the challenger in a champ fight, because a challenger needs to definitively beat a champion to become the champion. I hate squeaking by, and that's kind of why that's my like stance on the DJ and Cejudo fight. Personally, I just thought it was so close that I wouldn't give it to Cejudo.
I mean, a lot of people feel that way.
John Jones, man, he lost to Dominic. He got outworked.
Yeah,
agreed.
You know,
but I also think GSP lost to Hendricks. So, like they both have a controversial win on the record, and like I was saying before, the argument, I think it's weak because of the fact that GSP was also dominating before USADA, and he also turned down WADA testing for human growth hormone and for EPO prior to the Bisping fight. Like,
going back,
he's also the forefront though person that quite literally wanted stricter testing. He wanted Olympic level testing actually implemented into the sport.
What I was going to touch on, the reason he probably declined that fight is I'm like I said, assuming, keyword, that they said no, because like Justus just said, George is the one that initially wanted that. And honestly, I think that's why he left, because Johnny Hendricks was clearly on steroids. And
no, that's personally why I absolutely
he doesn't want to fight
he left. Is that, you know, he fought Johnny, and for once in his life he felt very human, you know what I mean? There was always a point in any George fight where if he was losing that fight, he could use his athleticism to just get the W.
I think his mentality going into that fight wasn't usually what it usually was either, because he was saying going into that fight that he wanted stricter testing that they did not do. I think he thought that Hendricks was on steroids and might have intimidated him a little bit, to be honest with you, because George is that type of guy.
Yeah, and he's way too per se nice to just be like, I think you know, I think Hendricks is a cheetah or whatever. The terrible George accent, but you get it.
He needs to be tested better.
Yeah, no, instead, and you're absolutely right. Instead, he was more or less like, I want stricter testing. I don't think there's any person that's popped for steroids that you could show me in any sport, in any part of history, where there was a time in their life where they were advocates for stricter testing. You know, it's like playing double agent, and while that's a smart move, you know what I mean? Like that's a really big risk.
I know, but I feel like GSP, he was doing just that because he knew he could get around any testing. Like, I know this is just like me jumping to conclusions and speculation, but I do feel like the guy was using, because I can't picture, like, I don't even hold it against him, but like, that's what I'm saying by the PED argument being weak. Because I feel like before USADA, all the dominant fighters were using, and like, I don't think GSP is an exception. Like, I feel like he was being an advocate because of the fact that like, maybe he didn't like using using PEDs, but because everyone else was using them, he was using them as well. And
I think some fighters are like that. I don't know. I don't think he is.
And another thing with performance enhancing drugs, I do want to share with everybody is, no matter the performance enhancement drug you take, when you get off it, which I think we can all agree here, no matter the speculation.
Will not be
If George, I was going to say, if George St-Pierre was taking steroids, he would not be taking them for 4 years for what? You know what I mean? So then we'd have to assume that he went on a 4-year off steroids and then come back. He looks the same. He honestly looks better than he did in his fighting career. Any steroid, go look at Hulk Hogan in his even in his early.
Look
50s,
at John Jones. Look at his body. Look at his body at UFC 214 when he knocked out Daniel Cormier. Look at his body. Gustafsson.
Any steroid user you look at, Vitor Belfort does not look the same. Alistair Overeem does not look the same.
Yep.
George St-Pierre, I would be very hard struck. I'd be very surprised. I think he'd be, besides maybe Frankie Edgar. If it came out today that Frankie Edgar popped for steroids, my jaw would hit the floor. Yeah, I'd be like, okay, so is this a dick pill story again or something?
At this point, I could see GSP being on HGH or TRT or something. He's 40 years old, but I don't believe he was taking anything when he was fighting.
No, yeah, I mean, maybe nowadays not fighting and stuff. Yeah, take what I stand by it that I think steroids should be allowed because, for one, it's a sport where it quite literally thrives off of exciting fights, more brutalized fights. The more blood, the better. We can sit here and try and say we're savantists that are just trying to watch the art, but we love a good ass whooping.
I think certain organizations should do it.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't bother me if they sign their waiver and know what they're getting into.
Absolutely. And you don't have to.
There's always going to be an extra person that's going to take it a step further, though. I mean, if you say, "Hey, we're gonna keep this," you can take TRT. Then there's always going to be somebody that's going to take some Winnie or something. Turinabol or whatever.
You're absolutely right. That's why I kind of stand with it's kind of, I guess, call it a libertarian stance on PED use. I want it all to be allowed because you either can be, you can either partake in it, and if you do it correct, and once again, it's kind of like the libertarian view on drugs or whatever, where if it's legal and it's allowed, these are going to be men that are going to the doctors to take clean supplements. They're not going to be buying it from some sketchy third-party source.
Like we said earlier, the right ratio.
Right. Now, there are going to be people that will try and cheat that ratio. Now, however, you can cheat a test per se to have it, not show up, but you're not going to screw up on that ratio. You know what I mean? If you really care to try and find it. As far as that, though, I've always been a believer. Just let it all be allowed. It takes out a lot of money trying to find these cheaters. Half the time they find them, they spend more millions of dollars doing things to show that they're innocent when they're not. Just let it happen
on that.
And just imagine if Dan Henderson was allowed to keep using TRT at 45, he'd probably still be fighting. People like Alistair Overeem, for Christ's sakes. No, and
they gave it to
he
him.
was allowed to. I was about to say Dan Henderson was completely allowed to take TRT for
5 fights or so.
Yeah, it was for whatever reason. But he looked great in those fights, man. And Dan Henderson doesn't look like a guy that's having adverse health effects from it because
surprising
he took it
hard punches.
No, he took some punches in his career. Definitely gave some better ones though.
Oh yeah, for sure. One hardest hitters in the sport, its history. But all right, so to wrap things up before we jump into UFC 264 lead up, we're gonna go through the top 3 GOATs. Mine, GSP number 1, Anderson Silva number 2, John Jones number 3. Jordan, what are yours?
I got John Jones number 1, Anderson number 2, and then GSP number 3.
Okay, Justus.
I have George St-Pierre number 1. I have Jose Aldo number 2, and I have John Jones by default is number 3. I really do want to throw Daniel in there, but it would be more of me just because I don't like him. So we're gonna throw John in at 3, and that's my top 3.
Okay, Mahfuz.
John Jones at 1 because, like I said, his resume is, I would argue, it's a little bit better than GSP, and he's also never been finished in competition. And I think the PED argument is weak. GSP at number 2 for sure, because like he has the best resume after Jones, and he avenged both of his losses. And then I gotta throw Anderson Silva at number 3 because I feel like after those 2 guys, he's had the best resume. And like in his prime, he just looked absolutely untouchable. And so those top 3.
He did. That's a good point with John Jones because he made the best decisions inside the cage of anybody. Like Jordan St-Pierre got hurt in a few of his fights. He had to come back, and win the fights aside from the Sarah one, which he avenged. But yeah, John, he made the best decisions of anybody ever in the sport. So
yeah.
Anything else any of y'all want to add before we wrap it up?
No,
I'm good on my end.
Have a wonderful day, boys. I'm gonna go get some shut eye.
Hey, go get it, brother. Man, good talking to y'all, man.
All righty, we'll see you soon.
Later, y'all.
Bye.